Sal Barry and Jim Howard. This is the Puck Junk Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the end of the year edition of the Puck Junk Podcast. No, this is not a season recap. This is just our last podcast of 2019. Sal Barry here. This time I'm joined by Jim, not the goalie Howard. Jim Howard, how are you, man?
Doing okay. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm still getting over being sick. And Tim Parrish, he was too busy moving into a new house this week. The nerve of some people.
Look, he's a big man right there, moving to the big house. Oh,
Moving to a bigger house. I'm actually really happy for him because he's going to have more room for his collection. Because, no, I'm serious, because his collection, his card room is it was like the upstairs and it was like the attic of like an old building, so it had the pitched roof. So he couldn't make the shelves too high because there were certain sections where like the ceiling of the room was only a little bit taller than he was, because it was a pointed roof. So, I'd be like, oh man, you need to get these like 6-foot bookshelves. He goes, yeah, I would if like the ceiling went up to 6 feet. In like some places it doesn't. It only goes up to like whatever. So he would just have like different shelves and stuff. And so I said to him, are you going to have more room for your collection? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, that's good because you can enjoy your collection more, but also now you're not under so much pressure to like get rid of things that don't fit, like if you just have more room, then you just put off the problem of like, oh, I have too many cards. I need to sell some of them or give some of them away or whatever.
Well, here's the trick that I think there's somebody over near me that does this. What you do is you open up a sports card shop, and you have really absurd hours that no one can ever go to.
Mm-hmm.
And you keep, you order stuff, you open up packs, and then you say everything gets damaged, and you write everything off on your taxes as a loss.
Mm-hmm.
That way you can pretty much just like have the government paying for all of your cards. Don't do this at home, kids. I promise you it's probably not a good idea. But, Tim, if you're listening, go for it.
I'm no expert, but that sounds like fraud to me.
Yeah, it may be, but, it's hockey cards, right?
Yeah. So I'm glad you were able to join me on this podcast, because I remember last time we podcasted together, it was about Pinnacle Mint, and that was a lot of fun. And you can actually find that in the archives if you just go back to, if you go to puckjunk.com and just go to a recent podcast, click on Puck Junk Podcast over on the left side, and then you'll see like all the podcasts show up. Or I don't know, you can just Google Puck Junk Pinnacle Mint and you'll find our conversation about that set. But that was many years ago, and today we got some serious topics to talk about. We got some card-related topics to talk about. We're going to start off with the elephant in the room, being Jeremy Roenick, because that was kind of like the big news right before Christmas time. Jeremy Roenick suspended indefinitely by NBC without pay. Jim, so actually, let me just give a little bit of background on this, and I know most of you probably already know what happened, but on December 19th, 2019, Jeremy Roenick was on the Spittin' Chicklets podcast, which is like the most popular hockey podcast, or so I'm told. It's hosted by former NHL players Paul Bissonnette, Ryan Whitney, and some guy named Rear Admiral. I think that's a code name or a assumed name or an alias. But anyway, so Rear Admiral, classy. But anyway, I mean, if he was in the Navy, then yeah, that would be pretty awesome, actually.
Probably not. I'm judging from his demeanor. I've heard him. I don't listen to Puck or to Spittin' Chicklets a whole lot, but I'm kind of guessing. Yeah, it's just a tawdry joke.
Right. Well, it's Barstool Sports, so I mean, you kind of
pretty much
expect that. But anyway, so Roenick was. I gotta say, the interview was awesome, and I loved it. I've always loved Jeremy Roenick. I've always been a fan of his. I remember when he broke into the league. That was around the time I got into hockey. I remember meeting him as a kid when I was 15 and having a conversation with him. And he's just always been a really awesome, really genuine, really nice guy. I mean, I've never heard of him being mean to a fan. I've never heard of him, like, just being rude to anybody. He's
always had a positive disposition. He's always kind of a happy, bubbly kind of guy, no matter, unless he's having a talk with Mike Milbury, and then, it's 50-50 chance.
Right.
But otherwise,
or Mike Keaton.
Otherwise he's just always like, not necessarily, it's sunshine and broken glass, or something like that, I guess.
Yeah, so I mean, I even remember like when I was trying to this was like, God, what was this? Maybe 6 years ago, when I was trying to break in as a writer. Like, I was writing Puck Junk, but I was starting to write for Beckett. I was writing a little bit for the Hockey News at the time, and I remember like doing an article about NHL '94, and I just said to myself, if I could talk to one person, who would I want to talk to about this? And I said, well, Jeremy Roenick, of course, because he's the best player in that video game. So I sent him an email, and I was like super surprised that he replied. And I mean, that really, like, that helped me a lot in my career, because like, I'm just like, all right, pie in the sky, shoot for the moon. I'm going to just email him and see if he responds. He probably won't. And then like 2 days later, he just sends me a reply that says, call me anytime. And then it has his number. And I'm just like,
that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that was
wow.
Cool. Yeah, that was cool. And so, I mean, I'm doing my little Beckett hockey article, and I have an interview with JR. And that was just like that. I don't want to say that put me on the map as a writer, but, my street cred went up exponentially after that, because then I was able to say like, well, can I interview you for an article? I've interviewed Jeremy Roenick in the past. And then that, well, okay, hey, if Roenick will talk to you, I'll talk to you too, So I love the guy. It's hard for me to be unbiased, but I gotta say his comments on the show, I think, obviously crossed the line. I've been talking a lot, so why don't you tell us what you think?
Sure, I'll let you call for whatever you need to do to get over your cold. So anyway, listening to it myself, do it a couple of times, and the funny thing about the Spit and Chicklets podcast is they're the guys that want to, they try and pull like fun and interesting stories, but they also want those stories that are not going to necessarily be always told in polite company. And so that's kind of what they want, is that sort of that sort of material to work with. And when JR starts talking, there's really no stop until he gets to the end of his story, period. And he doesn't, there's no mute button on that sort of thing. When he started going initially, talking about the thing where he's in Portugal with his wife and Karen Tappinen, and you can hear them saying, hey, that's your coworker, just hey, kids might be, they were trying to warn him, and he kept on rolling. And initially, when he first started telling the stories, like, okay, yeah, his wife and Karen yelled at him and told him to stop, and yeah, he got in trouble with them. But the second time that he went in on the subject of everything with his coworker, that's where he really went too far at that point.
So he's talking about going to Portugal with his wife and with his coworker Catherine Tappin, and he, so he says, all right, they got their bikinis on, they look smoking, ass and boobs everywhere, it's great, and I'm like thinking, okay, that's right there, that was kind of dumb, but you could kind of, all right, whatever. I mean, when he said ass and boobs everywhere, the first time I heard that, I thought he just meant like, well, I'm at a pool, I'm in Portugal, and it's like everyone's out in the pool, and okay, that's fine. But then when I listened to it a second time, it's like, all right, he's talking about his wife, he's talking about his coworker, all right. And then he said later on when he's just like saying, the lady's like, what's with the three of you? And he's like, well, let's just say I'm having a really good vacation. And he's like, and then Catherine's like, JR, shut the hell up, right? And that was funny. And that could have been the end of the story, because he's kind of like saying, yeah, I was kind of messing with this older couple, and just saying, draw your own conclusions, right? I'm in this vacation with these two women. But then he kind of like, then he's like, oh, I played off like we're going to bed together every night. And then really where that's really like where it should have stopped. It's when he said, if it really came to fruition, that would be really good, but it's never going to happen. So I feel like that's the point. And I mean, my girlfriend listened to the podcast with me. She loves Jeremy Roenick, and she was laughing her ass off. But then she said, okay, that's the point where he needed to stop. Like he just said, I just played it off, right? And that was it. And it's funny. But then when he's going on, he's like, if it came to fruition, that would be really good, but it's not never going to happen. And then like later on, and he's talking about like Patrick Sharp, and it's like, okay, that's funny, but that's also awkward. And then to a lesser extent, he's like, well, what did he say? When me and Anson get on there, it's a shit show. It's like, okay, so self-deprecating is funny, but now you're calling Anson Carter ugly, and I'm sure he's been called worse things in, as an NHL player. But it's just like, why drag him into this? Why drag Sharpie into this? Why drag Catherine into this? It just, I don't know. I think that was the thing, and that's Roenick doesn't remember like who he is. He's on like the biggest NHL network in the United States. I mean, there's the NHL network, but you have to pay extra for it on cable subscriptions. But NBC, I mean, the NBC is free, and he's on NBC games, and he's usually doing stupid shit during the Winter Classic games or a Stadium Series game or something. They have JR like eating hot dogs, or JR doing Irish dancing or whatever, right? I don't know if you saw any of those. So he's highly visible, he's high profile, and he forgets that,
Yeah.
and I think that, and so that's my take on that anyway.
Yeah, I mean, he spends more time gushing about his coworker Catherine and about Patrick Sharp than he does, regaling us with bawdry tales of Portugal and his thoughts on the subject. But all of those wonderful things he says, when you're keeping score, pretty much when he slams his own trump card and says dumb crap like that, yeah, NBC is going to have to come down on him. And that's pretty much where we are at this point in time, because we're, a lot of people are kind of saying hockey's having its Me Too movement right now.
Yeah.
And that pretty much, that all started about the time with the whole Bill Peters issue, like what? Is it a month now? Maybe a month and a half?
December. It was December.
Yeah, a month, and not even that. So
or November maybe. I can't remember now. It seems it's all just a blur. It's like like Babcock gets fired, and then all of a sudden it's like every coach ever is an asshole.
Yeah, so it's I mean, yeah, there's some coaches are getting reviewed, some are getting fired, and there's no reason being given. The coach in Dallas, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it Jim Montgomery?
Right. Yeah. I don't know if they ever really gave much. Yeah. But we don't know exactly what happened. Nobody says anything. And hey, you know what? Maybe it's not our business. That may be just, how the organization and the league feel about it in some scenarios.
What do you think?
But
go ahead.
No, but as it is, like, yeah, everybody's kind of on eggshells, at least for the moment, until we kind of figure out where the landscape is going and how it's changing. It's not that not to say that it's changing for bad, not to say it's changing for this golden sunshine place where everybody's going to be having happy feelings, and every game is going to end with a handshake line instead of a storm surge. As it is, we're not really sure exactly where this is all going. And people do need to watch their stab, JR included. And I know that NBC hires him and Milbury and a lot of those guys. Yes, they are knowledgeable players of the game and they have great stories, but they're also personalities that are going to say things that are going to have people talking around the water cooler, talking on Twitter and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. That's why they're there. That's why they have a job. People like Patrick Sharp, yeah, they're players. They know professionalism and they are absolutely smart as a whip. They have a different place, and there's room for all of them. There really is, but we got to keep some folks in line here and there. That's all, especially when it comes to, when you're on a massive, massively viewed or excuse me, listened to podcast like Spit and Chicklets, or a just world stomping, just podcast crushing venue like Puck Junk. I mean, you're gonna have to watch what you say every time. Damn it.
Damn it. Yeah. Sorry if I've offended the 50 listeners. Oh, I want to give out a shout out to the 3 listeners that we have in Finland. Or maybe it's 1 listener listening 3 times, but I just was looking at the stats. It's like, okay, USA, Canada, Finland. Hey, all right, cool. Finland. All right.
Canes.
Go. Yeah. So, I want to just read Tappan's brief comment. She said here, while Jeremy and I continue to be good friends, what he said was unacceptable, especially among workplace colleagues. I do not condone his comments. I think she said the best thing she could have said. I mean, maybe she was deeply offended, and if she said, I'm deeply offended, I'd be okay with that. I mean, I think it's one thing to joke around with the friend. I think it's one thing to joke around when you're with friends. Mm-hmm. And then I know that, but, because he was putting it out there in the public, and he basically said, yeah, I'd sleep with my coworker if that could happen, but it's never going to happen. It's just like, then what do you say to your coworker when you see her on Monday morning? You know what I mean? Like how does that not get awkward? Or he and Patrick Sharp are in the elevator together. Like, hey, Patrick, hey, Jeremy. So what's up? Nothing. I just, how does that not get a little weird?
It sounds like, the whole crew is very friendly towards each other, not in that sort of way, but, in joking, they know where theirs are when they can talk to each other personally and, off mic and on mic, and where those lines are drawn as friends and colleagues. But again, those are, comments and jokes that remain in private and not, broadcasted everywhere.
Right.
If I was in BC and I'm not in BC, I would probably, when Roenick's allowed back on air, should he be allowed back on air? Just to start the whole segment, just have a pre-taped thing where JR and Catherine are sitting there in the room doing notes, awkwardly quiet, and then he'll say hey Catherine, and then she just without looking at him says, shut up JR, and he's like, okay, I'm sorry, and then just cut to everything else, make it a joke, make it say, okay, yes, these two are kind of are functioning together, everything is going to be all right. Mm-hmm. And kind of clear that air. If you just kind of rolling into it listen to Tabnan's response to it. I don't think a lawyer wrote those words, but I think a lawyer would certainly agree with the words that she wrote. They are very sterile. They don't sound like what she would say to his face. I can only imagine what she did say to his face. And probably one of the more interesting things from the podcast, from the Chicklets podcast, is that they are going to try and have her on as a guest during the Winter Classic.
I don't know if that's going to happen
planned
now.
Before this.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen now.
It'll be interesting if it does, but I think you're right. I think there's a less than 50-50 chance that it'll happen now. But hey, stranger things have occurred. So
if you're in charge of NBC, do you let Roenick back on the air?
I think eventually, but I think I think you need to play your cards very carefully in how you do it, and maybe have him come in later on, maybe towards the All-Star game or something like that, where it's more, it's going to be something big and high profile, maybe kind of minimize his his screen time, and then kind of make it a little bit more gradual. And that's just saying how NBC maybe does it as professionally as possible. And of course, he needs to publicly apologize too. So
yeah, I mean, and you're never going to please all the haters, and there are people who dislike Jeremy Roenick, and they don't think he's interesting, and they don't find him funny, and they don't like him, and they're just like, oh, I don't know why NBC has this guy on. He sucks. They should get rid of him. Now's the time to fire him. Whatever. It's like, well, there's a lot of us who like him also. I mean,
sure.
I'm not a fan of Pierre Maguire, but I have respect for him, and I think that's my problem with a lot of hockey fans is that you could dislike a guy but still have a respect for what he's done or what he's accomplished. I mean, he did play not in the NHL. He, played college and he coached in the NHL. He didn't do too great. Yeah, he was like less than 100 games, I think, like part of one season, part of another season. And for the Whalers, so I mean, you were doomed to begin with. If you're taking over the coaching job of the Whalers, after they traded Ronnie Francis and after they traded Ulf Samuelsson, and we're talking like the mid '90s Whalers, Andrew Cassels and Jocelyn Lemieux and František Kuchera and I don't know who else. Just anyways, I'm off topic here.
Yeah,
I guess what I'm
saying.
Get
you back on line.
What I'm saying is I think Roenick needs to issue an apology. I think it needs to be put out as a statement on Twitter or on the web, not in person, not on camera, because I feel like that would just be like worse. And here's the thing.
Awkward.
Well, no, and that's okay, because you know what? I mean, sometimes you have to do the awkward things, but here's what I'm saying. He needs to apologize, but I feel like if he apologizes on TV, it's going to draw more attention to it. Like, he needs to apologize, and that needs to be out there. First, they got to make sure that his colleagues are okay with him coming back.
Sure.
I mean, if my coworker called me ugly, I'd be like, all right. If he called me ugly on the most popular hockey podcast, I'd be like, ouch, man. But okay, yeah, whatever, sure. You know what I'm saying? But then if he said, oh, I'd sleep with them, I'd be like, whoa, okay, that's kind of weird, but thank you, I guess. But I still feel kind of weird. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. So I feel like they gotta like smooth things out. And he does have to apologize. I don't want to see his career end over this. Like, just like I didn't want to see Don Cherry's television career end over what he said. But I mean, I guess, when people picked up that this was more of a pattern and not just a one-off thing with Don Cherry, then I was just kind of like, all right, maybe his time's come. But you don't want to see things end like in a bad way. You just want to hear that they retire, and it's like, okay, cool. Thanks for the 30 years. You were fun. Not like, oh, you said one stupid thing and now nobody likes you and you're outcast and it seems like there's no room for forgiveness.
That's why I said everybody's walking on eggshells as far as everybody else is walking on eggshells about what they say and do in hockey, and it goes over the broadcasting desk as well.
Hey, let me ask you this, because you're a Hurricanes fan. What's your opinion on the Bill Peters thing? Because I'll say this, like when I first heard about this and Akeem Alou, and I remember like when Alou was with the Ice Hogs, I remember Bill Peters as the Ice Hogs coach, and I was just like, oh, okay, well, shit, this kind of hits close to home. And, I paid attention to it, obviously. But then when I hear that, like, he did stuff in, he, like, hit a player and kicked the player or whatever in Carolina, and Rod Brindamore's like, yeah, that happened. And I told Ron Francis. And then Ron Francis was like, yeah, that happened. And I told my boss. And then it was just like, okay, and that's where it ended. I'm just curious what your whole take is on this, being our Carolina insider. By insider, I mean season ticket holder.
Sure. And person who pays the most attention to it, within the Puck Junk group.
Well, I got too many Penguin fans and not enough other fans, like, on the crew. So, yeah, you are unique in the fact that you are a Hurricanes fan.
A jerk. So, yeah, I think when we first heard it, I think at least for me, I wasn't terribly surprised. I mean, I've gone and watched practices, not a ton, but every now and then, when I had some time or whatever, I'd swing on down to the ice rink and go watch him and stuff. And he would be physical in a, hey, I'm, Ryan Murphy or whatever defender, you're out of position, go reach over and grab them and then just drag them where he wants them and say, stay there, don't move until this happens. Things like that. You could tell he could definitely get frustrated with his players. His public outbursts at some of the players, namely Eddie. Why am I blanking on his name? Goaltender, played for the Wolves. Lack, yes, thank you, Eddie Lack. Yeah, his outburst at Lack was very surprising at the time. And so I guess kind of seeing those things and hearing those things and knowing just how badly he was like losing the room by the end of his tenure was it makes it less shocking. But to know that, all of that all happened and that it went up the chain of command, and then Ron Francis turns around and gives him an extension on his contract, like, that was pretty shocking to me. And the players all said, yeah, we several players went to him, had a conversation. We felt like it was dealt with, end of story. But were they really feeling like they just couldn't find somebody better? Yeah, they were sort of rising a little bit in better play year after year, but it wasn't anything substantial. Obviously, they never reached the playoffs underneath him. So, it's very surprising. And then to hear Peter Karmanos, the previous majority owner of the Hurricanes, say, no, I never heard of this, and I would have had him fired immediately for it. Like, that contradicts what Ron Francis says. And so, granted, we don't necessarily have a ton of love for Peter Karmanos and his time in the past recent years of owning this team, and we know he said a lot of crap that has not necessarily landed well with the fans here. I think most people would be likely to give Ron Francis the benefit of the doubt in this scenario as far as the he said of the situation. So that's kind of where it hits right there. But the ball keeps rolling, or the puck keeps skittering along, and more people get in trouble, and people, the Peters thing just kind of, I won't say fell to the wayside. I don't think he's going to coach in the NHL ever again. He might get picked up somewhere else in another league. I'm sure he wants to coach somewhere else.
Of course.
Europe, KHL, something like that. Even Roenick on the podcast was talking about, physical abuse from Iron Mike Keenan, I believe. But he said it didn't bother him. And it all comes down to individual players. You just have to, in this day and age, you have to treat people with respect. That's all.
Yeah, it was different. It was different 30 years ago, obviously. I'm not saying it was better. And Roenick was very clear. He said, I'm not saying Mike Keenan was abusive towards me. I'm not saying that Mike Keenan hurt me. He said, look, this was a different time. I was 18 years old. He, I didn't check a guy when he passed the puck, and he starts, he puts his hands and he's like choking me, not choking me, but like kind of like strangling him a little and shaking him and just saying, if you ever effing not check a guy, I will bury your ass in the minors. I will end your career before it started. And he's like all spitting and frothing. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds like Mike Keenan. And like I like to say, if you're a winning coach, then your methods are acceptable. And if you're not winning coach, then your methods are not acceptable, I guess. I don't know.
Scotty Bowman.
Yeah, exactly. It's never acceptable. But I thought that was interesting that Roenick just came out and said, look, I'm not, making any allegations here. This is just what happened. It is. And, this molded me into the player that I became. And he liked hitting. He liked being a bowling ball or whatever and knocking into guys. That's what I loved about Roenick, was the fact that he would just that he was a skilled player, but he would just knock guys over. And then I also think it's interesting because like then you had these allegations came out on Mark Crawford.
Mm-hmm.
And I like...
Not quite as serious, but...
No, I mean, okay, so Sean Avery said that he kicked him, and Brent Sopel said that Crawford was... See, the thing is that Sopel said that Crawford was, like, kind of abusive towards him, but then he also said in, like, the same breath, he was quick to say, I had my best years under Crawford, and he made me into an NHL player, and he would yell and scream at me and tell me that he would scratch me, and then he would he'd play me 80 games a season. You know what I mean? Like, like so that just kind of seems very, Jekyll and Hyde. But then Crawford basically said, I have been getting, therapy because of this and working on my anger issues and stuff. I think that's great. Like, if that's true, I think that's great. I mean, I believe it to be true. And the Blackhawks just basically just saying, okay, he's suspended until after the new year. You know what I mean? Then he'll just quietly come back in and, things will die down, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is crazy, though, what's been going on. This has been a real firestorm of late.
And there's been good things to come out of this as well. There was a guy that, I think he was a minor league player, that created a sort of like a grading app, sort of like a Yelp review for coaches, teams, organizations, and things like that. And hockey players of all levels can go onto this and rate people that they have played for, teams they played with, and write comments and let other people know, hey, this is a really great coach over here, or this coach, he can kind of rub you the wrong way, but he did all right by me, things like that. And it's his product or his site has absolutely exploded because of this. He's got players all the way up into the American Hockey League that are on it. I don't think at the time that I had read about it, he didn't have anybody from the NHL. I'm sure those guys want to try and keep things under wraps as much as possible, for their own personal reasons. But when it comes to the guys that are still just trying to work their way up and also help some of the other players coming along eventually, apparently that's been a pretty good thing for a lot of guys, and he's gotten a much higher increase in traffic now as well.
I could just read the reviews, it'd be like, tied me to the goalpost while my teammates took shots on me, 1 star. Made me a healthy scratch 3 games in a row, 1 star because I can't rate 0 stars. I don't know. I want to talk about Brent Seabrook.
All right.
Chicago Blackhawks defenseman, one of the alternate captains on the team. So he's going to miss the rest of the season. The skinny on Seabrook, he's 34. He's out for the season. So he's going to need right hip surgery in January, right shoulder surgery in February, and left hip surgery in February. So for those keeping scores, that's the left hip, the right hip, and the right shoulder. The Blackhawks could move him to long-term injured reserve. His annual contract value is $6,875,000 a year.
That'd be nice.
Well, yeah, and he has a no movement clause until 2022, and then he has a modified no movement clause until the end of his contract in 2020 when it ends in 2024. So here's my whole thing with Brent Seabrook. I've always liked Seabrook as a player. I still remember, and I know 6 years ago was a long time, but in 2013 it was Game 7. It was a conference finals against the Red Wings. The Blackhawks were down by a couple of goals. Taves takes a penalty. He starts flipping out in the penalty box. Seabrook goes over to the penalty box, calms him down. And then the Hawks kill that penalty, and then they end up winning that game, winning that series. And I can't remember if it was Game 7 now. It could have been Game 5. It was a pivotal game, though. I mean, that's just the kind of leader that Seabrook is. My problem is not with Seabrook. My problem is with Blackhawk fans. And Blackhawk fans are some of these Blackhawk fans, and I'm a Blackhawk fan, and I've been following the team for 30 years.
Really?
89, early 89, a little over 30 years now. I know I don't look old enough to have watched anything for 30 years, but
I know you look like you're fresh out of college.
I know I feel like that way sometimes. I'm still broke, but like fresh out of college. Okay, the fans. and I'm paraphrasing because, you read stuff on social media, you read comments and articles and stuff like that. And everything is like, they should trade Seabrook and free up the cap space. Seabrook needs to retire because he's holding the team back. When there was the expansion draft a couple years ago, and everybody's like, oh, I hope they could get rid of Seabrook and, he could go to the Golden Knights. And it's like, well, why do they want a $7 million defenseman? Like, so was it a bad contract by Stan Bowman? Yes. But no, because here's the thing. I said I've been a Blackhawk fan for 30 years. I've seen some of our greatest players retire in other places. I mean, and even before me, Bobby Hull retired with the Hartford Whalers. Think about that for a second. Even when the NHL and WHA merged for the 79-80 season and Bobby Hull played one more year, it was with the Hartford Whalers. Well, it was with Winnipeg and in Hartford, not with Chicago, like it should have been. Jeremy Roenick, one of my all-time favorite players. I see him, get traded to the Phoenix Coyotes because they wouldn't pay him what other centers of his caliber were making that year. He wanted to get paid what Eric Lindros was getting paid, and he was having a better, I don't say a better career, but, he's a 50-goal, 100-point scorer, whatever, and he wanted to get paid what the other guys of his caliber were getting paid, right? And they wouldn't pay him that, so they traded him, and then he, Phoenix and Philly and LA and Phoenix again and San Jose, and just watching my favorite player like play in all these other towns. Chris Chelios, I mean, he started with the Canadiens, but then he was a great defenseman with Montreal, but then he became the Hall of Fame defenseman that he is with Chicago. And he wanted to play 2 more years and retire, and the Blackhawks were like, nope, we're just going to trade you because we don't want you to play for us anymore. We want to give you this front office job. And Chelios was like, no, I want to play a few more years. I want to mentor the new group of players, blah, blah, blah. And so at Belfour, another one. I mean, and then there's other players. I mean, Steve Larmer, Troy Murray, and some of them you had to make those trades. Maybe they were good personnel trades, not so much with Larmer. But that's the thing. Like, I grew up and saw all my favorite players retire with different teams. I want to see Duncan Keith, Brent Seabrook, Jonathan Toews, Patrick Kane. I want to see them retire as Blackhawks. I want to see their whole careers with the Blackhawks. I don't care if Patrick Kane ends up as a 10-minute a night, third line, fourth line player. Maybe he would care. Maybe he doesn't want to be that when he ends his career. Maybe he always wants. Some guys, they just want to be top line, and when they can't be top line anymore, they retire, and that's okay. Some guys kind of age gracefully, and they don't have to be top line, and they can play a long ass time. I want to see my heroes, this current group of heroes, retire as Blackhawks. So I don't want to see Seabrook traded. I don't want him to feel like he's pressured into lifting his no movement clause if he wants to retire in Chicago. I mean, you're giving up a chunk of your life to play for a team.
Yeah.
And that contract that they signed him to, they thought that was pretty good at the time.
It's a small chunk of your life, though, and you need to be able to make the money that you have earned in that short period of time, because good chance, very, very few of these guys are going to go on to have, very lucrative things to keep their lifestyle and their family going later on. They can't all be Jeremy Roenick and get a sweet job working for NBC.
Right. I guess the thing is like, they wanted to lock up all these guys to long-term deals. I mean, they made a big deal about locking up Kane and Toews because they signed them to contracts on the same day, and they were like identical contracts. I mean, sometimes you can negotiate a little bit with players and say, look, if you take a little less money, we could sign a better player, and then we could keep winning cups. And I think most players would think about that pretty hard and say, I like winning Stanley Cups. I could take $1 million less if I'm making. I think once you're over like 3 million, 4 million, then it's just like, okay, 7 million or 8 million. Oh my God, you know what I mean? 8 million.
As long as you're not Ilya Kovalchuk, he just wants it all.
I'm surprised it took the Kings as long to get rid of Kovalchuk as it did. I'm really surprised. Like, I even put, like, when I did my Puck Junk End of the Year awards for the 18-19 season, and I have my boomerang player, and that's the player who goes away and comes back, but then goes away again. And a couple of years ago it was Mike Fisher because he made his little comeback, Predators didn't make it to the finals, and then he went away again, right? And I thought Kovalchuk was going to be that boomerang where he's like, oh, I'm back from the KHL, bitches, and I'm going to play with the Kings, and oh, we suck, and now the Kings are sending me away. And yet somehow he remained with them long enough this season to pick up his bonuses, and now he's going away again. And it's funny, but like here's a couple things I want to say about Seabrook. One is, I already said that I feel like the Blackhawk fans were unfairly scapegoating him. This guy was playing hurt. And here's the thing. We've all done something like that. And I'm going to give a very tenuous example in my life. In my 20s, like in college, out of college, after college, I used to do martial arts quite regularly. When I was in college, I couldn't afford it that much, but I remember there was like a free Aikido class. So I was doing
like go out and practice like by fighting crime or something, or
no, I'm not that tough. But like I did karate for a couple of years, like pretty religiously in my early 20s. And then when I went to art school, I didn't have the time or the money. So then I would like maybe, if like I might do a lesson here or there, but I was kind of like out of the loop. But I remember there were free Aikido lessons at whatever, the gym at the school or whatever. Somebody was giving free Aikido lessons. So I was doing Aikido and I hurt my knee one day really bad. Like we were doing rolls and I rolled and like my knee just like popped or snapped and it hurt for like a day and a half. I was limping a little bit. Now I'm in college. I don't have insurance. I'm in my 20s. So you just shake it off. You walk it off. Probably iced it. Next day felt a little better. Next day felt a little better. And then, then it was just not a thing. But then when I got back into karate, like regularly, I was running almost every day. I was going to karate like 4 or 5 nights a week. And like maybe at the end of the night, my knee would hurt a little bit. And I'd just be like, oh yeah, that's where I heard it when I was in Aikido. Just a thing, right? Like you're just now. If I was an NHL player and I had a staff doctor and I could say, hey, doctor, my knee hurts a little bit after I play a game. Can you take a look at it? Then that stuff can get figured out a lot faster. But I mean, I understand, to an extent, playing through pain. You know what I mean? Like maybe my knee hurt a little bit, but I was just, whatever. My class is over in 30 minutes. I'm just going to tough it out, right?
Yeah.
Or I'd run a little bit and my knee would hurt. But then it got to a point where I was running more and then my knee started to flare up and then it became a big problem. So this little problem in 2001 or 2000 or 2001, somewhere around there, became a big problem by like 2007. You know what I mean?
It compounds.
What's that?
It compounds, yeah.
And so so the guy was playing with injuries and that was affecting his abilities and his effectiveness. And everybody's like, oh, Seabrook's old. He's old. He's not good anymore. He's lost his step. He's holding back the team. He's hurting the team. And it's like, no, shithead. He's playing hurt. Get off the couch, do 10 push-ups, and then talk to me, right?
Yeah.
If you could do that. And and I'll say this, some of you know I play beer league hockey, and one of the reasons why I play hockey is because I love hockey. I love writing about hockey. I love talking about hockey, and I want to have a greater understanding of it. And I think a lot of these people need to, and when I say these people, I'm not talking about immigrants like Don Cherry. I'm talking about people who criticize hockey players but have never played hockey to shut up or put up. That's how I feel on it. I feel a little vindicated, actually, that he was it. Like, because it's like, see, you guys are wrong. He was playing hurt, and you all just want to, like, make him sound like he's the thing that's holding the team back, right?
So the breeze is blowing cold in the Windy City. I think there's fans like that everywhere, and it's the fans that have like the most curmudgeonly responses to stuff seem to cut through a little bit harder and a little bit louder, typically online and in the call-in shows and stuff like that. So I mean, I'll say they're probably fewer and far between in Carolina, but that's because there's fewer fans in Carolina than probably are in Chicago. But I mean, I think any real person that's not just a typical Blackhawks bandwagon fan, that, or even one that just hopped on the bandwagon way back in 2009. or 2008 or whatever, back when they really started making noise,
Mm-hmm.
and got that first of the 3 cups in the last dozen years or so.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys remember what Seabrook did, and they remember that, that sort of veteran presence really does help. And it certainly helps the younger guys coming up along as well. When
Mm-hmm.
you take away all those veteran guys and you have just a young team, and there's nobody to really like calm down the youth and show them how things should be played, and when to keep a level head and when to not. Uh, you get teams like say Buffalo last year, where
Mm-hmm.
there wasn't much of a veteran presence there, and they look great at times, and then they kind of fall off the rails at others.
Mm-hmm.
It's necessary to have guys like Seabrook, and you can say, oh, they've got lots of veteran guys over there. Yeah, sure they do, but he's a guy that whatever defensive prospect you got coming up through the system, he's going to be the one that's showing them the ropes and molding them into something better than just a passable player.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and he deserves to have the respect that he has earned. You can hate the Blackhawks. You can be a fan of some other team, Red Wings, whatever, that's not a fan of the Blackhawks. You have to respect that guy.
Right.
And I think that whenever he does hang them up, I don't know that he may be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but I think eventually he will probably make it into the Hall of Fame.
I don't know about that. And that
No,
might
you
be a
don't. You
discussion
don't. You
for.
don't think everything? No. Okay.
Seabrook hasn't really won any individual awards. He did get a gold medal, and this is not a knock against Seabrook by any means, but one of the reasons why they brought him on the Olympic team in 2010 is because he was Duncan Keith's partner. So they were just basically like, let's take these 2 guys. They play really well together for Chicago, right? They're kicking ass for Chicago. They're a good pair. Take this pair of defensemen that are playing really well together, and I thought that was brilliant. Because Keith was one of the top defenders on that team, and you take his D partner, that makes complete sense. But I think a lot of times with like Hall of Famers, you're looking at like, with the defenseman, there has to be like, maybe you led the team in scoring, or maybe you were a Norris Trophy winner, or maybe you won a Hart Trophy like Chris Pronger. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's a lot of
There's
benchmarks.
not enough accolades for defensive men.
This is true. There aren't, and even like the Selke Trophy, which is for like the best defensive forward, they still look at guys who like put up like decent points. You know what I mean? Like they still put up decent points. I mean, I remember now this was in the 80s. I think it was 85, 86. Blackhawk player Troy Murray won the Selke Trophy, but he put up 45 goals and 54 assists for 99 points. Now, I know at the time you had guys like Gretzky scoring 200 points and guys like Savard scoring like over 100 points a season. So 99 points then wasn't like 99 points now. Like, oh my God,
Right.
well, it's 100. But still, I mean, 45 goals and 54 assists, and he wins the best defensive player. Not dissing the guy. I love Troy Murray, but I'm just saying that, like, that just kind of even goes to show, like, yes, this defensive player who scored like 40 goals a season. Okay, sure. Hey, speaking of goals, Svechnikov.
Yes.
So you were like the
the
Svechnikov.
current golden boy of the Carolina Hurricanes.
Is this Andrei Svechnikov?
Yes, that is right.
So you're like, check out his lacrosse goal, and I'm like, from October, and you're like, no, from December.
His other one. So yeah, I'm at this point. Everybody's probably seen Svech's goals, where he swoops in from behind the goalie and picks up the puck on his stick. And it's still below his shoulder, so it can't be disallowed as high sticking, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
But he manages to then just sweep it just over the goalie's shoulder, and he did this both on Connor Hellebuck most recently, and David Riddick, I believe.
Yep.
The Flames. So he's done it twice, and both times, big wow factor and everything. What I want to ask you is, right now, he's the only one that's accomplished this. And Anthony Duclair apparently attempted a fake on it and then tried to spin around and do a wraparound to try and get another goalie with it. Failed, goalie blocked it. But, another person tried or did something along those lines. Do you think that the league or the board of governors are going to have a discussion about whether or not this is a little too much pizzazz for their very serious league that they have out there, or do they just think, okay, this happened like a couple times, it's not that big of a deal? And I don't think goalies are going to sit there and change their method of how they defend against anybody, really. And there's been an article on that, I think, on NHL.com. Scott Murray, who was the Capitals goalie coach, he was asked about it and said that tracking is the most important thing for goalies, and it helps them defend from by multiple attacks. And Cam Talbot says that you can see Svech go behind a goal or whatever, and it might cross your mind, but you're not going to change the way that you play the game just for one guy or just because of that. So I don't think anything's going to really change too much on the ice, but do you think the league is going to pay a little more attention to it, and kind of like how the spinoramas were eventually outlawed because they were kind of making goalies look like fools when it came to shootout attempts? Well, do you think that there's a chance that might be an impact later on?
Here's the thing about the spinorama is that with shootouts is that the puck always has to be moving forward. So yes. If you spin around and the puck suddenly goes behind your body, or like now you're moving the puck backwards. So that's a technicality, you know what I mean? Like in a game, a spinorama is fine. But like if you're skating towards the goalie, the puck always has to be moving forward in a shootout. You could have players slow down, but once they turn their body and then the puck now is away from the goalie because they're doing a 360, then technically the puck is moving backwards and not forwards. So I understand that rule and I'm fine with it. You know what I mean? Otherwise, I mean, likewise, like they can't go around the net and try to do a wraparound during a shootout. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you can't do these things. I don't think that the lacrosse-style goal is going to be scrutinized unless it becomes a problem. And it only becomes a problem if everybody starts doing it. And I don't think everybody's going to start doing it and start scoring on it. And you know what? If they do, that's okay. I mean, it's just so strange how, like, hockey, like, I mean, before the 60s, you didn't really have a lot of slap shots. I mean, that's why you had slap shots, but the pucks didn't really lift up off the ice because you didn't have the curved sticks. Goalies would stand up. They wouldn't go down to block the puck. They didn't wear masks. And then when you had guys like, Bobby Hull and Stan Mikita start curving their sticks, and then Bobby was like getting these slap shots to go up off the ice, 3, 4, 5 feet off the ice. And then all of a sudden, then masks become almost a requirement by goalies, but they didn't say, oh, you can't do that. They curtailed the curve of the sticks, but they didn't like say, oh no, you can't curve the sticks, because they're probably like thinking, okay, now people can like shoot the puck a little higher. We're going to get more goals this way. I don't see, here's the thing. Like, I don't, and it was the same thing like a couple of years ago. I remember them talking about Steph Curry, the basketball player.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like his 3-point shots, right? And he'd get all these 3-point shots, and now they're talking about, oh, is now kids just want to do 3-pointers, right? Because Steph Curry is getting all these 3-pointers, and why shoot for 2 when you could shoot for 3? You know what I mean? And it didn't really have the impact that people were afraid it was going to have. The impact of maybe on the younger players, they say, oh, I want to shoot 3-pointers because whatever, Steph Curry does it. But like, I think with the lacrosse style goal, I mean, I can't really see too many players pulling that off in a game and it working. It's like, it only works when you have the element of surprise, right?
Yeah.
If the goalie's expecting it,
and
then it's
space. You got to have he only will do, like Svech explained, like, one, he practices like every day. He practices his goal, and Rod Brind'Amour's like, this is stupid, but whatever. Yeah, you're a talented kid, so I'll let you do it.
right.
And he does it, and he pulls it off. But he explained later, like, yeah, this is only something that you can do if you have the space, because if that's pretty delicate to try and have to sit there in a game and balance a puck on the blade of your stick and then get it around a very tiny hole past a goalie. So if he's got any sort of defender on him, he can't do it.
Right.
You know, and it's just don't leave him alone if you want to defend the damn thing.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, like what you said earlier, like, so the stick blade has to be under the crossbar. And I mean, I watched that, and he does keep it under the crossbar. He tucks it right in that corner. It was a beautiful goal. You know, like I said before, I don't think the NHL is going to crack down on that unless it becomes a problem. And if the problem is more scoring, then it's not really a problem.
Yeah. You'd think they want more scoring.
Yeah, totally.
Last question on this subject.
Of course.
Complete hypothetical. Since it's all coming from Gretzky's office. What if Gretzky had this skill set in this arrow in his quiver? How many more goals do you think he would have scored in his career?
And I'm going to answer that 0, because they would have been all assists. He would have pretended like he was going to do it, but then he would have flipped the puck to the guy in front of the net, and then he would have scored.
So no change, huh?
So it would have probably led to another goal, another assist instead of a goal, because Gretzky was the king of dishing it out.
Sure.
You know, right, so I could see Gretzky like going like he's going to do that, but then instead of, you know, reaching over and putting it in that corner of the net, instead just kind of doing a little wrist flick into like the slot or the high slot, and one of his boys, you know, shooting it home for a goal, because that's how he operated.
That's what he did. Yeah.
That's what he did.
Okay,
but no. Well, that's my hypothetical anyway. So we got a Winter Classic coming up. January 1, the 12th annual Winter Classic, Wednesday, January 1st, noon Central Time. Dallas Stars versus Nashville Predators at the Cotton Bowl Stadium. So Dallas is hosting. It is a outdoor warm weather Winter Classic. I know there have been some stadium series in warm weather places. Like I remember when the Kings had their stadium series game with the Ducks. They had Kiss was like the act that played during first intermission, which I thought was awesome.
I heard it was actually a lot of fun out there. I heard that people had a great time, and it actually came off generally without a hitch.
You know, I actually last year, somebody offered me a pair of Winter Classic tickets for free.
Had that game already passed, or was it for a future one?
No, this was a couple days ahead of January 1 when we had the Blackhawks versus the Bruins at Notre Dame. So somebody was like, if you want a pair of tickets, they're yours. Like, it was just somebody who was connected. Sweet. And just didn't say where they were going to be or whatever. And I wasn't going to be like, oh, well, not if they're nosebleeds, because when you put a hockey rink in the middle of a football field, all your seats are pretty far away. And at that point, you probably want to be a little higher up anyway. But then I thought about this. I'm like, what do I do? So usually like January 1, my whole thing has been maybe going out the night before. I used to go out with some friends to like this banquet. I don't do that anymore. But I get home at like 2 or 3 in the morning. I'd sleep in until like 11:55 and then roll out of bed just in time for the Winter Classic, heat up some leftovers, and that was like my January 1 thing, right? So I was thinking about this, and it's like, well, if I go to the Winter Classic in person, then I can't sleep in and watch it on TV, which sounds lame, right? But then I thought,
lazy.
3-hour drive to Chicago, to South Bend, right? 3-hour drive. And then on top of that, it's effing cold out there. And this is why I envy the people in Dallas and I envy the people in LA and like the warm weather climates when they can have an outdoor game and it's nice outside and you're watching
Soon you'll be able to envy the people in Raleigh. because we're going to have one soon too, I think.
Oh, that's a long time coming, right? Or maybe Chicago will just take another one, I think.
Well, I don't want to get off the subject of the current Winter Classic too much, but when Tom Dundon came in and took over as the owner here of the Hurricanes, he kind of had a list of demands. This is kind of third-hand information, I guess. So take it for what it's worth.
Sure.
He took it to the NHL and said, "Look, I'm paying a lot of money to hop in on this, and I'm going to keep this team here. You want me to keep this team here. Here are some things I want to do." And one of the things that he really wanted was an outdoor game. And they said, "Okay, but not yet. Not like next year, not the year after." And apparently the rumor was that they let him do some of the Whalers games.
Yep.
To kind of like make peace on this.
Mm-hmm.
But there have been a few visits from the NHL with the NHL executives at Carter Finley Stadium, which shares the parking lot with PNC Arena. Okay. This is where NC State football plays over there, and they have marked out the size of what a hockey rink is in the middle of that field a couple of times now. And it sounds like right now we might have a stadium series next season. And that's obviously not official because they haven't announced it. But Tom Dunn has pretty much said, "Look, I want an outdoor game here because I want people to have fun with it. And you NHL can have a piece of this and enjoy the spoils of the riches here, or I can just keep it all to myself, and we're just going to have a random outdoor game and make a whole weekend event where everybody's just going to have fun tailgating, and we'll have an NHL game, we'll have some minor league games, we'll probably have some college games, we'll have some music events. It's all going to happen at Carter Finley Stadium. And if I have to pay for it out of pocket, I will. Right. Or I'll let you cash in on this." So that's the rumor right there. And I'm not anybody, so let's see if that happens. That's the story.
I don't see why that wouldn't happen, especially if they've been investigating that stadium. But who would just real quick? Who are the Hurricanes' big rival?
Right now, I would say their biggest rivals and who we think it'll probably be that we have to face is the Capitals. Really? Because there was such animosity finally when we got back into the postseason with that whole 7-game series.
So it would be somebody more regional.
How are the Capitals? The Capitals are the closest team to us.
Are they? Okay, I don't know. My geography is not great. I mean, I think of it's funny that the Predators are in the Western Conference.
And that's who I would love to have, actually, is the Predators.
That's who I thought it would be. Like the Preds and the Canes just kind of seem like those,
it would be the barbecue bowl, really. Because they would bring their barbecue, we'd have our barbecue, it'd be a big old barbecue love fest.
Well, two warm weather climate
Southern
cities.
Teams. Mm-hmm.
Southern teams, yeah, exactly. Just like if the Florida Panthers had an outdoor game, it really should be against the Lightning. You know what I mean? Yeah. It just makes sense. And with the Blackhawks,
and it should be ball hockey, and it should be in Key West.
I don't know about ball hockey. The Blackhawks, I mean, they've been around long enough, so you could kind of make whatever rivalries you want because it's Chicago and Detroit. Sure, they were in the same division for many, many years, and there's a lot of animosity there. Chicago and Boston, okay, original 6 teams, we get it. Chicago and Pittsburgh, maybe they're both popular teams. Okay, sure, just go with it. Chicago and Capitals.
That's just TV ratings on that one, I think.
Oh yeah, Chicago and Washington, same thing, and then But okay, so the Canes might get one. So yeah, Winter Classic. Unfortunately, this year my Winter Classic routine is going to be cut short because I still haven't seen Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. No spoilers. No spoilers. But so my girlfriend's mom wants to see that movie and she wants to see it with us. Usually my girlfriend and I, we go we're in an abusive relationship with Star Wars. We know this is wrong, but we keep going back for more. And then we see Solo and we go, well, that wasn't so bad. I kind of like that. And we see like episode 8 and we're like, what the hell was that? No, that was terrible, right? And
Yeah.
I'm not the guy who waits in line to see a Star Wars movie like Phantom Menace 1999. That was like, oh, and I'm old enough. I know you say I don't look old enough, but I'm old enough to remember seeing Empire Strikes Back in 1980 with my mother because I saw a TV special about it on the news. They're talking about another Star Wars movie. I don't remember Star Wars when it came out, but Empire, that hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, oh my God, this looks amazing, right? I'm like 5 years old. And so my mom...
Were you excited about the Christmas special?
Nope, that was before my time.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah, I would have been 3. I don't remember the holiday special.
All right.
But what I remember going to see Empire with my mom, and I remember the line being around the block. And this was the first grown-up movie that I had ever seen, because before that it was like Jungle Book, The Muppets Great Adventure, right? Like all these kid movies where you just bought a ticket and walked in. And now it's like, wow, grown-up movies, people like line up around the block to see grown-up movies, right? Because I'm like 5 and it's Empire Strikes Back, and I didn't know that Star Wars was this like cultural phenomenon because I was 2 when the first one came out. So I saw Empire in theaters, I saw Jedi in theaters, but I didn't see that until 2 weeks after it came out. And I was like every day, Mom, when are we going to see Return of the Jedi? When are we going to see Return of the Jedi, right? And then when like Phantom Menace came out, I was like, we got to see this opening night, me and a buddy of mine, right? Whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then things, whatever. And then you kind of cool down a little bit and you go, well, okay, I don't need to see episode 2 the night it comes out. I could wait a day or two. I could wait a week or two, whatever. I don't care. And like with this Rise of Skywalker or whatever the hell they're calling it, I wasn't going to see it the first day, the second day, the third day. But like, I didn't want to see it on Winter Classic Day either. So January 1, New Year's Day. But that's when we're going to a 2:50 p.m. showing. So hopefully the Preds and or Stars wrap it up by 2:15, but that's not going to happen. So I'm going to miss the third period. I don't even know if they're really that much fun. After you kind of do the player introductions, the fireworks, the pageantry, the opening, Maroon 5.
Hold your horses on that, and I mean that quite literally.
Oh, no.
Because I kind of looked into this. So for the fun of the 85,000 fans that are going to be there, that is going to be the second largest Winter Classic in history.
Wow.
The NHL will, quote, celebrate Texas heritage with hockey? I'm not sure on that one. I mean... Yeah, don't besmirch, Dallas Stars fans. Enjoy hockey. Believe me, we get enough hell up here in Raleigh for that as well.
Okay.
The opening band that's going to be going is going to be a band called Midland. I don't know them. Might be good. The Star-Spangled Banner will be sung by Jake Hoot, who was on The Voice. Dan and Shay will be performing in the first intermission, and then there's going to be jugglers, rodeo clowns, sword swallowers, fire breathers, rope tricks, and horse ride tricks in the second intermission. And also in this is going to be, there's going to be a tribute to the Texas State Fair.
That's a lot for 18 minutes intermission.
I'm guessing that it may get kind of spread out here and there. But I kind of want to see where all that goes. There is a bit of morbid curiosity to it.
Yeah, no, that's okay. If they do things that are regional, I mean, who knows? Maybe when Carolina hosts an outdoor game, maybe like during first intermission, they'll pull out some NASCARs and do like a quick race or something. Around
I can see funny cars rolling around the field.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, why not?
For the first intermission or something. I don't know.
Who do you think's gonna win?
I don't know. I don't want to say I don't care. I haven't been like totally punched in this season. I've been following the Blackhawks. It's funny. My girlfriend is making fun of me because she sees it's like 9:00 at night and I'm like writing a hockey article or something. She walks into my office and she says, "Sal, pays for NHL center ice, decides to write about hockey instead of watch hockey." And I'm like, yeah, guilty, right?
Right.
sometimes you got a deadline and you're just like, I got to get this done tonight. And yeah, the Sharks and the Avs are playing and I'd really rather watch that. But yeah, I just haven't been like super tuned in. I need to change that, obviously. I like watching hockey. Yeah, I don't really have an opinion. I also don't really have an opinion on the Winter Classic uniforms. Tim and I talked about them a couple weeks ago, and we're just like, yeah, they're okay. They kind of borrow from like, okay, sure, the Nashville Dixie Flyers from 1962 to 71. Okay, I don't think many fans are going to remember that, but that's okay. You could be obscure.
As long as it looks good and it sells, that's the important part, right?
Yeah, I mean, what god awful ECHL, UHL, Colonial League, whatever, would the Hurricanes even borrow from like a predecessor for a Winter Classic, or would they just wear Hartford Whaler jerseys and be like, we're kicking it back to 1996?
Oh, wow, man! If they went with the blue Whalers jerseys, that would be kind of hot right there. I could see that, but they're not going to get a Heritage Classic. That's for sure. Or they're not going to get the Winter Classic. It'll be like Stadium Series.
But
so I think that they'll get to design a new one, which will probably become like a new home jersey or something like that for us. Or if they had to just roll back, I think they would probably just go with maybe like just the original red jerseys that they had with the Storm flags around the waist and such. I don't know. That's neither here nor there at this point. So. Wrapping up on Winter Classic, though, I think I'm going to say, even though Nashville is behind Dallas in the standings right now, the visitors have won 8 Winter Classics out of the 11 that have been around so far. So my money is going to be on Nashville, the underdogs.
Gotcha. Real quick, I just want to throw out a quick announcement for those of you listening. You've heard me talk about the Puck Junk online shop at shop.puckjunk.com. Right now, I'm having a sale on all T-shirts. They're 20% off now through the end of January 1. So if you're listening to this, you want to check out shop.puckjunk.com. If you use coupon code SAVE20, save 20% off of a Puck Junk T-shirt, and then also free shipping in the United States. I guess now we talk about hockey cards. So to my hockey people who don't give a damn about hockey cards, I guess this is where you could just turn off the podcast. But for those of you who also collect, just to give a quick recap. So Topps Now stickers for week 13 are on sale. Topps has been really kind of lazy lately. Like it just says all stickers are, well, every sticker is to be determined. Like usually they'll like say this is the first sticker in the pack, and then a couple days later they'll say like this is going to be the second sticker in the pack, right? And now like around the holidays they've just been like TBD. It's 9 stickers for $8 to be determined, right? So okay, so Topps Now stickers week 13 through this Thursday, and then Upper Deck's game dated moments. Card number 30, Evgeny Malkin's 400th goal. And card number 31, Alex Ovechkin and Nicholas Backstrom playing 900 games together. Wow. Jim, do you collect any of the game dated moments cards?
Not really. I'm trying not to get overwhelmed with cards. And every now and then I have to stop and look and say, oh God, there's a number of boxes around here that something needs to happen to them. So I find either somebody else to donate them to, or weed through and say, okay, yeah, this is actually garbage. This can go, whatever. I'm not going to go into too much personal history on it, but my dad was a bit of a hoarder when it came to sports cards, and I'm trying not to be that.
I understand.
Not to say not calling anybody else a hoarder or whatever for collecting cards or whatnot. It's just that. I don't want my wife to look at me the way that my mom looked at him.
Wow. It's like, you love this Mickey Mantle card more than you love me. No, you guys are equal in different ways. I mean...
Right. It's apples and oranges. I just happen to like a lot of fruits.
I would just say, hey, be glad it's cards and not something else, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The joke,
but the problem was there was a lot of other things else.
Oh, well, I don't want to get into your family tree. I remember like when I was a kid, we'd be checking out at the grocery store and I'd throw a few packs of cards on the conveyor belt and my mom would look at me and I'd say, it's either this or drugs or guns. And she just laughed. She said, all right. Well, I mean, I'm like 14 or 15, so I think I'm smart. It's like, hey, it's either this or drugs or guns take your pick.
Mm-hmm.
So she realized that, $1.50 in trading cards was not the end of the world.
Not the worst thing in the world. Yeah.
But, with game dated moments, they're like $3.99 each card, and then you also have to buy an e-pack. So it's pretty easy to not collect things when you're paying like $4 or $5 a card, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll pick and choose, and I'll be like, ooh, they made a gritty card. Okay, I want this card of gritty streaking, so I'm going to pay the $3.99 and then also buy an e-pack of something cheap like Compendium for like 99 cents, right? Tim, on the other hand, he'll just wait till it's on COMC and then he'll get it for cheaper somehow. Like, I don't know how somebody would pay $4 for a card and then sell it for less than $4. It seems counterproductive, but
It's all supply and demand, really.
true, and also could have just been something thrown in a trade, like I'll throw in these cards and like, all right, whatever, sure. But you want to talk about some upcoming releases?
Yeah, I'm sure we're getting short on time, so I'll weed out the chaff from the wheat here. There's a new series coming out called Upper Deck Allure, which sounds like their new cologne, but apparently it's a set of cards. It's coming out in February 5th. Looks like you can pick it up for probably around $85-$90. They're about 6 cards per pack, 8 packs per box. The commons run at about 135 cards. There's 3 hits, 1 auto, 1 memorabilia, and then 8 inserts. And I think there'll be like one other nice card in there. You get the parallels, blah blah blah. The cards actually look pretty good, and at $85 with that many cards coming in the pack and halfway decent hits and all, new product, I would actually take a chance on this. Maybe I wait till it's on sale. Maybe I just throw it in the online shopping when I'm buying some other stuff around February as well. Which hey, that's when Upper Deck Series 2 is coming out later in the month anyway. So
right,
that's actually one that looks pretty good, and I may pick up a box of that and do a review on it. So have you had a chance to look at those at all?
I looked over the sell sheets and stuff. So each box is going to have 1 rare parallel or jersey card, 1 rookie jersey card, and 1 autographed card. 5 base parallels and an 8 insert cards. I'm really tired of the rare parallel being the stand-in for the jersey card, like with the Orem inserts in like oh god, what was that set? Was that I can't remember now, one of the Upper Deck sets, and it was just like, get a autographed jersey or Orem limited parallel chase, and I'm just like, no, nobody wants this card. Like,
Nobody
you tell
asked
us
for this.
You tell us it's rare, but we don't. It's not what we want, right? Like I don't know. At first I thought, okay, this is kind of neat. Like, it's another set. Then I kind of looked at the cards and I'm like, well, these just look like Ovation, but shiny, like shiny Ovation. Or maybe they look a little bit like Contours, especially the die cuts. Oh, your cat is having a tantrum.
Yeah, he's trying to crawl behind there. Say hey, Dad.
Cat
Say
tantrum.
Hey. Now you get shy.
Yeah, he's camera shy. Yeah, doesn't want to comment on Upper Deck Allure. I thought it was funny that you said Upper Deck Allure sounds like a cologne. What would trading card cologne smell like? So I have 2 suggestions here. One is, that new card smell, like when you open a pack of Upper Deck, and it's kind of that weird mix of like the gloss and the ink, because it's like really pungent when you like open a pack of like new cards.
Chemical industrial.
Yeah. That would be one smell, but I think the smell I'd go for would be like the bubblegum cards from the 90s. Because because I'll do this. This is weird. Sometimes I'll be sorting like old Topps cards, and I'll take a stack of them, like a 3-inch stack, and just turn it sideways and just bury my nose in it and just give it a whiff, and it just has that smell of like
the girl look at you funny when you do that.
The gum. No, hey, what I do in the privacy of my own card room is my business, right? But it's just like they still smell like gum after 30 years. They still have that aroma, and I like that for some reason. I'm pretty happy with that. That would be what I think. What a card themed cologne would just basically smell like, old wax pack cards.
Well, I did the last box I did buy from my online store. I also bought a box of Twin Peaks trading cards from the old TV show.
Oh, you're talking about the box set from Star Picks?
No, it was a new one that just came out.
Oh, okay. Now because I have the old set from 1991 that was put out by 91 or 92 that was put out by Star Picks.
Yeah, this is a different one.
Does this focus on all 3 seasons or just the most recent season?
All 3 seasons.
Okay, and also the movie Fire Walk with Me or no?
There was nothing from Fire Walk with Me, which I thought was a damn shame because I would have loved to have gotten a Chris Isaak card. Chris Isaak
or a David Bowie card.
Oh, that'd been fantastic.
That would have been something else. Yeah.
Yeah, but I picked up. Well, there's a bunch of my friends that are all into the show and stuff, and we got together and we were watching the 3rd season together and such. So I picked up this box, and initially I saw it and I was like, well, that's cute or whatever, but I wasn't gonna pay for that. And then it was like, oh, there's 2 autograph cards from people in the show, signed on card. I was like, well, that's neat, but I still don't really need it. Oh, but there's also scratch and sniff cards. I was like, wait, what?
What?
Then I bought it. Yes, there are scratch and sniff cards from things in the show, like scratch and sniff card of coffee or pine trees or pies. I got one that was a vanilla milkshake. Smelled terrible. But still, scratch and sniff. How great is that?
What autographs did you get?
I think it was one of the showgirls, and then it was the creepy boy that lived with the old lady. Can't remember their names off the top of my head. I'll find them later and let you know. Going on eBay, you can go in and of course, see a lot of the hits that people have gotten. I think you can buy all the scratch and sniff cards for $10 in one go. But it's kind of neat where a lot of the autograph cards, people that were autographing them wrote some of their favorite lines from the movie, wrapped in plastic and see you again in 25 years, things like that. Just really, really, it was kind of a treat, honestly. So it was a lot of fun. But yeah, sorry, you wanted to talk about card smells. There are cards that still smell.
Wow, that is something. Yeah, I forgot about the whole scratch and sniff phenomenon. I remember having scratch and sniff stickers in the 80s. Whether they really smelled like the thing or not, I can't really remember. It just smelled like something.
Smelled like something.
Smelled like something, right. So I think we're in a good place to end this episode of the podcast. Because we want people to actually listen to this before January 1, because then after January 1, all that stuff we say about the Winter Classic, it just won't matter anymore.
Yep, and Roenick will probably be reinstated by then anyway.
Well, yeah, I hope so. I mean, if they're doing rodeo, fire eating, square dancing, pole vaulting, and all those other things, Texas things that you say they're doing, then not pole vaulting, but all those other things, you weren't paying attention. Square dancing, rodeo clowning, fire eating, pole vaulting, archery,
I'm sure they'd love to put JR on a bucking bronco right about now and
scuba diving. Oh, he would totally do he would totally do the mechanical bull. If he didn't already, he would, that would just yeah, I mean
he's waiting Texas barbecue.
All right, so I guess we're going to end it here. I want to thank everybody for listening to this podcast. I want to wish you a happy new year. You'll hear from us again in 2020. So thanks for listening.
For more hockey goodness, follow us on Twitter @PuckJunk.